All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. Let's not hesitate. Without further ado, we are joined now by the Vice President of the United States. Vice President JD Vance is our guest. Mr. Vice President, Steve Deace here on the Blaze. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely, Steve. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, brother. Thank you very much. And I'm doing very well that you guys are the ones calling the shots right now and not the previous regime. A lot of people were very nervous over the last week or so, as I know you well know. I watched an interview that you gave on Sunday, I think it was on CBS, maybe MSNBC. I get all those insane asylums mixed up. But you said, hey, I understand why people, he said, I understand why people are nervous because before we had stupid presidents and now we have a smart one. And I'm wondering, Mr. Vice President, could you take us behind the scenes? Can you quantify an example of what the last week has been like, something our audience would not have seen with President Trump and the decision-making process that went into the last week or so?
Yeah, so I feel very vindicated in having said that, sitting here this morning. Knock on wood, things are going very well. And what happened, in short, is that yesterday, you know, the Iranians and the Israelis both called us and in their own separate ways basically said, we're done. I think the Iranians by telegraphing their attacks so that there wouldn't be any American casualties. The Israelis by saying, you know, look, we're kind of done with this. We've hit the point where we want to stop fighting. We've accomplished our military objectives, and we just don't want to do a long, protracted war. Now, I really think in their own ways, both the Iranians and the Israelis were exhausted by the war and wanted to be done with it. And the president created an opening, an opportunity to do that. And then, of course, you know, there's some shooting back and forth. These ceasefires are often messy, and I think the president had to really exert some pressure on both parties to basically stop. And to get on the business of peace, which is exactly what he did. But you know, it's interesting, Steve. So I'm very much a student of the Middle Eastern conflicts of 2002 onward because, you know, I'm a millennial. I was a Marine who served in Iraq, and I've always wondered kind of what went wrong. And I think one of the things that you read about, I wasn't in the room, of course, back then, that what wrong is that we allowed mission creep. In other words, we started with one mission, and then it turned into another mission, and then it turned into another mission, and you didn't have the kind of presidential leadership, of course, often a Republican in charge, but you didn't have the kind of presidential leadership to say, we are going to do what we came to do, and then once we've accomplished that successfully, we're going to get out. And what did the president say we needed to do? We needed to destroy the Iranian nuclear program. We did that, of course, with incredibly competent troops and really an amazing military operation. And the president just never let that mission creep settle into the way the generals were thinking about it, the diplomats were thinking about it. And I really have to give the president all of the credit here because I think, look, American history has told us that given the situation that he was in, every American president of pretty much my lifetime has made a bad decision in the Middle East. He was able to get in there, do what he said he was going to do, and then put the region back on the path to peace. It's really an incredible thing, and I feel very blessed to live in a country led by the President of the United States.
Since you talked about you've been trying to learn lessons of past failures, what lessons, Mr. Vice President, do you think we learned about how the rest of the world did or did not respond to this?
Well, I think one of the lessons that the rest of the world learned from our Middle Eastern conflicts is that they could basically count on America to make bad decisions and to permanently entrench ourselves in that region of the world, to try to build democracies, to build separate nations, sometimes even separate cultures within a country where you didn't have any democratic culture in Iraq or Afghanistan, and then we tried to create it out of thin air. And I think that a lot of those countries sort of assumed that America would always be on the hook. And I think that Donald Trump has made it very clear that the only thing the United States is going to be on the hook for is accomplishing our national objectives and our national mission. And again, that's exactly what we did. And of course, you know, we're willing to work with anybody. We're willing to talk to anybody and engage in diplomacy to accomplish America's interests. But when we say America first, that's not a slogan for the President of the United States. He is constantly asking, what is in the best interest of our country? How do I make that happen? And how do I ensure that I don't allow mission creep or anything else to fall into what we're trying to do?
I see you very active on social media. I know you're very dialed in to what's going on with our base. Our base was very unified in trusting President Trump, but I know that you also saw there was a broader debate happening about Israel and our alliance with them and how much to engage in the Middle East. I will tell you personally, I'm torn. I love Israel. I'm going to take my wife there, I hope, for our anniversary there next year. On the other hand, I've got a son-in-law in the National Guard. My son just registered for selective service. So I kind of looked at this debate last week, and I was personally torn. Here at the Blaze, lots of our hosts have various disagreements on this as well. I've told our audience for about the last year, I think you might be the best messenger I've ever seen in the Republican Party since I came of voting age. So I think you're uniquely qualified to speak into this broader debate, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that. What do you think?
You know, you're absolutely right. I do see this debate. And I think one of the things the president has been able to thread the needle very well is recognizing that Israel is a very important ally. There are a lot of things that we do together, but the best thing for the United States, and I think, frankly, the best thing for Israel, is not for the United States to be enmeshed as the policeman of the Middle East, but to actually force the Israelis and the rational Gulf Arab states, the Saudi Arabias, the United Arab Emirates of the world, to actually build some real self-reliance in their own region of the world. We want Israel and the Gulf Arab countries to police their own backyard. We don't want to have to serve as the policemen of the world. And I think that, you know, for friends of mine who are very pro-Israel, it is not in Israel's interest for America to be perceived as having to be stuck in the Middle East because it happens to be in the interest of Israel. The president of the United States has to anchor everything that he does to the national interest of the country. And I think, unfortunately, if we're being honest, some politicians have somehow, you know, sometimes they'll kind of pretend that there's never any misalignment, never any disagreement between Israel and the United States. I think Israel is a great friend of ours, and we are in agreement on the deep cultural value questions. But that doesn't mean that on every question of foreign policy, we're always going to be aligned. And you saw that this morning, where the Israelis were very pissed off, and I understand why they were pissed off, and really wanted to whack the hell out of the Iranians this morning. And the president of the United States said, you know what's in the best interest of the United States? Peace, and for this craziness to stop. And so he was willing to exert pressure on the Israelis. You saw that very publicly in order to stop and to get the ceasefire back on track. I think so long as we have political leaders in America who are laser focused on the United States, yes, we can be pro-Israel. Yes, we can say that our Israeli friends have a lot of, there are a lot of ways in which we can work together. Allies often do work together, but sometimes allies have disagreements. And I think we just have to be honest about that. And that is the way for us, I think, to just thread this needle in the 21st century. So many Americans, Steve, are so sick of Middle East entanglement, and it is really bad for Israel for them to be perceived as the reason we're getting entangled in the Middle East. But actually, Steve, I think it's really good for Israel if they're perceived as a great and willing partner in helping us accomplish our objectives in the Middle East. I think that's what they've done over the past couple of weeks, and I suspect that's going to continue for the rest of the Trump administration.
Mr. Vice President, I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you for carving out 15 minutes or so to join us here at the last minute on the Blaze, and definitely hope to do it again, brother. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Take care, man.
You bet.
Bye.
God bless.